Okay, let's do a spring selection video recap, and this goes for any make and model of vehicle with independent front suspension, something similar to the Prado like this. It's got a live axle in the back, which means you can go a bit higher and it doesn't really affect too much. There's definitely pros and cons with every move with suspension up and down. But let's talk about the front in this video. If you haven't seen it yet, we do have the suspension information playlist. That's the organized videos, anything that I could think of at the time or afterwards, videos I see or modify or look at, I pop them into that suspension playlist. So they could be in a bit of a random order, but hopefully the newer videos are at one end. All right, let's use this 120 Prado as the example. It is actually sitting too high. Okay, so the spring in there at the moment, and it's had a few different springs in this vehicle, is a 314. It's been in there for a few years. Previous to this, it had a 350 in there, which was another option, and it was actually lower than this, so it's going to be lower and firmer. But I felt that it was not the right spring, a little bit too firm for the weight of the 120. It's got a bull bar, it hasn't got a winch, but it's got the heavy duty 4mm K-on bash plate underneath, and it's got two batteries, not a lot of other weight on the front, light bar, a couple of antennas, doesn't really add up to be much. What you need to consider when you're lifting the front of an IFS vehicle is all the other components and how it affects those. And to be quite honest, a stock standard Prado will work best in off-road conditions on technical uneven tracks. So you might be disappointed to hear you've put a lift in like I have, and maybe disadvantage the vehicle. So there's certainly advantages and there's disadvantages. So to make the most of those, that's where you don't want to be too high, because some people think the higher the better, and it's got to be 50 mil, and it's got to be, I'm going to push it a bit, I need a 3-inch lift and a body lift, and everything they need. Now, to be quite honest, the ideal lift on the front of this Prado or any Prado, well, it depends on the owner and what they're planning to use the vehicle for. For some people, minimal 20 to 30 mil. I would generally suggest anything from 30 to 40 millimeters is probably ideal. But then people have got this problem with the front and the rear needing to be level, which isn't a good idea, quite simply because if it's level, then you load up the vehicle, all the weight goes on the back. You don't load up your engine bay with baggage or camping gear, unfortunately. It all goes in the back, and a lot of the weight's behind the rear axle, which means it pops the front up even more. Another good reason to keep the front low, and the back's going to be a bit higher. The standard factory rake, it's about 30 millimeters difference. Like I said in other videos, about 750 at the front, 780 at the rear. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out those videos on the suspension playlist. And we're going to keep it about the same. We might even increase it by 10 mil, because we might end up sort of going, well, this is not a stock standard Prado. It doesn't get used how stock standard Prados get used. That's why we've modified the suspension. And we may have gone to about, well, ideally it would have been good to have about 40 mil at the front on this vehicle. To be honest, I think it's about 50 or even more. If there was a winch on the front, that would be more suitable and bring it down a bit. Or we could drop the spring seat on the monotubes, or we could select a different spring. Maybe the 350 was a good option, but then it's lower than this. And if you had a winch, so there's a lot of variables, and it's quite complicated. Even for someone like me that's been doing it a long time, I do take the time and think about it a lot and consider all the different things: petrol, diesel, auto, manual, bull bar, no bull bar, alloy steel, winch, no winch, other accessories, bash plates, dual batteries. And you know what, there's still variables. The heavy duty side steps, they add a bit of weight towards the front as well. The guards on the engine, if you've got the transmission guard and that and so on, it just adds weight to the front of the vehicle. And you've also got to consider the weight at the back of the vehicle and the spring selection, what it's going to do to the front of the vehicle. So it might sound simple, not so simple, and that's why some people end up with their vehicles level or high at the front, or looking a bit silly, or they're way too high overall, and then you hook up the caravan and then it's just popping monos because it was already high and the wheels are just about off the ground. We don't want anything like that. So my setups are going to be aiming for, look, about 40 millimeters at the front, subject to your correct story when you send me that text message and the photos, so that I can do the spring selection to the best of my ability. It's going to depend on your story, but it is difficult to manipulate the system lower than say 30 and higher than 50 without having problems, which is why I say 40 mil at the front is your best sort of area where you want to be. Now the rear's a bit different because, like I said, you're going to load it up, and it's a coil spring. The more weight you add, the more it goes down. The more you subtract, the more the vehicle goes up. So it's a real conundrum. So you've got to really look at what's the most consistent weight going to be. What is most of the use of the vehicle going to be? It's going to be a 90% thing. If you're on the road 98, 99% of the time and it's not loaded, you can't really just go, well, I'm going to set it up for, you know, being fully loaded camping and hook up the caravan, which you only do totally towing 3 days a year or something like that. You know what I mean? You're just going to have to suck it up and go, well, you've got heavier suspension, you've got good suspension. It's going to go lower when you load it up. But when you get to camp and unhook it and then go for a drive, you're going to have the clearance you want for full driving. And that's what the lift's about. It's about the clearance, because everybody's got a lift. So therefore, and then some people have got the big tires and different vehicles. Let's not go there too much. But you sort of need a bit of modifications to be like everybody else, because they've dug the ruts out that deep, so that, you know, it's just the scraping factor underneath the vehicle and the vehicle protection. And that's why I suppose there's bash plates at the front, so there's not too much to worry about. You might scrape, but the wheels drop down and they're still on the ground and you're still moving forward. So it doesn't matter too much that, you know, oh, but I wanted 50 and I've only got 30. It really doesn't matter. Remember what I said, closer to stock actually allows the flexibility and the independent suspension to work better, and it's actually more capable. The whole reason for the lift is for the clearance. Now think about this one. We'll throw another spanner in the works. You're going up a hill, the vehicle's like that, so all the weight goes on the rear and that compresses down. So that means if you've got a hot vehicle that's too high going up a hill, that's going to be great for the clearance. When you're going up the hill, because all the weight's on the back, that's compressed. This is going to be extended. The wheels are sort of like just about popping off the ground on something really steep, which is another reason why you don't want to be too high at the front. See, that's what it's all about. Then when you're coming down a hill, the front's down, all the weight's on the front's going to compress, and that's where you're going to want that bash plate, because it doesn't matter if I give you 50 mil at the front. When you're coming down that hill, you're going to be having 20 mil lift, and the car's going to be bouncing, and it's independent suspension, which means the center, the guts of the vehicle is bouncing and can touch rocks and things on the track, which is why it's really important to have that K-On underbody protection. And I recommend the Stranex. And don't forget the discount code F4B4 Diesel, the name of this YouTube channel, on the kaon.com.au website, and you can bada bing it and get a discount. So anyway, nothing in it for me, just I set up the discount for you guys. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. The main springs that I'm going to use when I set up Prados in a 150 Prado is only going to be either the 350s or the 352s at the front, and with a bit of variation to the spring seat height if we want to tweak it from there. So there's not too much to remember there. And on the 120 Prados like this one, we're going to be using anything through the range generally of a 300, a 302 or a 314, depending what the gear is on the front. So you can use this video to do a bit of a spring selection, but like I said, the whole story and my experience might help. So if you want to get the kit from me, you know what to do. Just send the text message the right day, check the videos in the suspension playlist, follow the Prado Hospital Facebook page, and bada bing bada boomski, we'll get it sorted for you. This is just an awesome looking vehicle, even if I do say so myself, and it's well set up to do what it was designed and been used to do, and continues to do so. A little bit off topic, Roller Titan ridge mount upgrade recently. Bloody awesome, nice and low, just stronger. Haven't had much on there at the moment, not that you need the strength anyway. Solar panel on there, only 120 watts, been doing the job. Car didn't get moved yesterday. And bada bing, bada boom, battery under load with the compressor running this morning. 10 to 12.2 under load, which means compressor cuts off and it'll be back up around 12.6, 12.7. Back to the suspension for those that hung around. So spring selection, let's just take care of that and we'll wrap this one up. What would I use? Well, the proof's in the pudding, to be quite honest. Like I said, we've got 314s in here at the moment and it's too high. So ideally, and this is a situation of you going up a steep track and you're actually going to be getting those front struts, shockers sort of topping out a little bit at times, and the wheels are just not going to have, there's no flexibility there. So really a 302 would have been a better selection, and of course it would look less level, and I'm quite happy with that. So this one actually sits quite level, but it's a bit of a test guinea pig. As I said, lots of different springs. So 302 for this one would have been better. You actually get a smoother ride too. It's a bit complicated, but I can't really explain that one. That's because it's got a bull bar, no winch. If it had a winch and 2 batteries perhaps at the front, like if it had the lot, 314 is good. But the way it is, look, the best option probably wouldn't even be to go 302. It would be a good option, but that is certainly an option. But it might be leave the 314 and drop the spring seat about 5 mil, which changes at the wheel about 10 mil. It's about double that. I've explained that in other videos in the suspension playlist. Or you could have a 302 and take it up about 5 mil. Same result, 10 mil difference height in the spring, right? Now, they're the main 2 springs in a 120 I'm going to use in the diesels, 302 and a 314. But when it comes to the V6, it's a lot lighter in the front, the engine, all alloy, and it does make about 20 mil difference. So where you would use a 314 in a diesel fully loaded and go, yep, that's good, in a V6, you're going to go a 302 and get the same result, which means without that weight on the front, you're going to be down to a 300, which is, I'm losing my numbers here. I've got a lot of numbers. If you watch all the videos, you probably go, I don't know how he remembers all that. And bada bing, bada boom, I'll give you some numbers again in a minute. But down to the 300 would solve the problem without the bull bar. And depending what you want, you may add or subtract. But there, you can go down to a 296, but I haven't used those for over 10 years, right? They're just kind of like really low. Yeah, I mean, 20 mil lift at the front, maybe no bull bar. I'd have to think about it. I'm just throwing numbers out there. Now let's test my memory. The 314, I reckon it's 405 millimeters long. The 302, I reckon it's 395 millimeters long. The 300, I reckon it's 385 or some other number, something like that. And then the 296 goes to about 378. It's something like that anyway. Look, I can't remember. It's been too long. It doesn't matter. I know what the springs do. I hope that helps with your spring selection. If you want to go and get your kit somewhere else, it's up to you. If you want to go direct to Dobinson's, that's up to you. A lot of hard to get stuff like every other business, and the quality's not there and the turnover is. And so look, you know, I've been doing this a while, so if you want to get the right stuff the first time, it's probably a good way to do it. A little bit cheaper than the Dobinson's retail price, so we've got a bit of a discount there. And of course, get yourself in the VIP group to be set up for DIY install. We've got the videos on how to install it if you do want to do it yourself. Otherwise, maybe one of our workshop partners can help. And our Sunshine workshop partner, he loves installing Dobinson suspension. So get a hold of the boys there or me and get a kit, and I'll send you there, or get a hold of them and they'll send you to me to get the kit. And bada bing, bada boom. Hope that all helps. The videos and the info is designed to help you. Catch you on the next video. See ya.